Do you guys observe Pride? Okay. All right, calm down. I do. Pride is obviously really important. It's important to buy products. For all of June this year, I only bought clothing from companies that use LGBT-friendly sweatshops. And I think, in general, I try to be an ethical consumer. Like the other day, I was at a party and someone offered me cocaine. And I said, I'm sorry, does this come from a woman-owned drug cartel? It's just something a lot of people don't think about. Aside from being a proud member of the LGBTQ community, I'm also part of the most marginalized sexual minority in the world, which is people who are horny but prude. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, just kind of like, hey, daddy, don't look at me, you know. It's the energy I'm bringing. I just got out of a very long relationship. It was over a year ago, but I haven't matured. And we were in a long distance relationship, emotional distance. We actually lived together, but when you go through a breakup, like, you have all these intrusive thoughts that you can't control. Your brain is just doing its own thing. Has anyone here ever experienced intimacy? And so I would just wake up every day and have all these unwanted thoughts, just like, I have to get a wrist tattoo that says, breathe. I don't think so. One thing you can do if you're going through a breakup, which I highly recommend, and I did do as well, is just start attending a lot of weddings. I just started going to them left and right, whether I was invited to them or not. I was actually in my best friend's wedding, which was in London. She married a British guy that she met while studying abroad, so whoopsie, you know. No, I'm kidding. She's Lizzie McGuire, but I was a bridesman in the wedding, and if you haven't been to a traditional Anglican wedding, the way it works is that there are 6 groomsmen and 6 bridesmaids and 1 bridesman, and each bridesmaid walks down the aisle with each groomsman, and then the bridesman walks down the aisle with, say it with me, the bride's grandmother. And So my friend, she's Filipino-American. Her husband is very British, like I said. So I'm walking down the aisle with just the sweetest little Filipino lady, has had to watch her people be freed from their white colonizers, just to have to sit through her granddaughter walking down the aisle with, you know, Benedict Cumberbatch. I should say the Philippines were technically colonized by Spain, not Britain, but that joke works well if you're woke but uneducated. I did like London, though. I guess I'm sophisticated. I used to live in San Francisco. Is anyone here a tech oligarch? Okay. Just kind of blinded by your own narcissism. If you haven't been to San Francisco, it used to be all like hippies and artists and stoners or whatever. And then one year, all the tech people moved in and they were like, you don't live here anymore. And then all the hippies were like, but we're almost done making this quilt. And then all the tech people were like, no, we 3D printed this better quilt. And it costs $4,000. And it films you while you sleep. And if you don't have one, you can't log into Spotify. So get on board. I hate tech people. I'm currently looking for a job in tech. So let me know if you have any leads after the show. It's okay for me to say that. Hypocrisy is a very big part of gay culture, so if you call me out on it, that's hate speech. I would love to work in tech. I feel relaxed just thinking about it. My friends are like, why would you want to work at faceless corporations? It's like, don't body shame them. Just because they don't have faces doesn't mean they don't have all the legal protections of personhood. Okay, I snapped. No, but I'm a tireless advocate for marginalized corporations. I don't think your activism is fully intersectional unless it includes the liberation of multinational conglomerates. Yeah. Yeah, we exist. And no matter what gender my kids are, I'm raising them as brands.